Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners pregame podcast. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune and Travis Davidson, and this is powered by Olipop. Parker, take it away.
Olipop, folks, the soda that's good for you. If you haven't yet given it a try, go to drinkolipop.com. Use promo code CHAMPU20, CHAMPU20 to get 20% off your first order. It comes in 16 delicious flavors, nothing artificial in that can whatsoever. 9 grams of fiber, never more than 5 grams of sugar, and prebiotics to support digestive health. So if you haven't gotten away from drinking traditional sodas yet and continue to pump all that sugar and acid into your body, there is a delightful and delicious alternative. And that, my friends, is Olipop. Again, drinkolipop.com is where you're going to want to head to learn more.
All right. This week, Oklahoma is playing West Virginia. West Virginia Mountaineers coming into Norman, Oklahoma for a 6 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. They are 6-3, headed by quarterback Garrett Green. But first, we need to I almost made it sound like I was Gabe there. For the second I said that, I was like, that sounded like Gabe Eichert. I think the first thing we need to talk about is just the mental aspect of where this team's at right now. And for those that are wondering, I think all you have to do is go listen to Drake Stoops. And I get it. The kid grew up around Oklahoma. He grew up in the confines of the Switzer Center. He grew up running around those offices in the locker room and the practice fields and all that. So, like the SEC, it probably means a little bit more to him. It just means more to Drake Stoops. That said, he's a leader of the team. Everybody looks to Drake Stoops. That's a bad dude. The Patriots are going to get themselves a great wide receiver slot player when Belichick ends up drafting him late in the draft this year.
Heck, if Belichick's still around, there's talk of firing him.
Well, right. That's crazy. That's craziness. Anyways, what did y'all think of that quote? And does that quote, the fact that it's made so many rounds, the fact that it's such a social media Latin world today, and the players are going to be seeing it, does that galvanize this team moving forward?
Does it galvanize them?
Yeah, like I guess to the point where, okay, like if this dude is talking like this and you can tell that he means it and he's one of the leaders of the team, and even after coming up short on that 4th and 5, he's still and not getting the pass interference, this dude is still talking confidently like there's a lot out there for them to accomplish, a lot to play for. The university means a lot. The team means a lot, which showed to the team that how much they mean to him. All those different things added up into one little aspect of galvanization, coming together, doing those things. Because there's always a moment with a team. It makes or breaks. Could this be what makes the team kind of moving forward? I mean, we'll find out Saturday, but we got it. This is pregame.
Well,
going into this game, do you think this galvanizes them?
And my thought on all of it is it's a great soundbite, right? And it's been picked up by a zillion different outlets. I've had 1,000 quote tweets on it. Kirk Herbstreit quote tweeted it last night. So it's made it all the way to the very top rungs of college football. And it's a message that isn't just applicable to folks in the Oklahoma locker room, but for any player, any fan base, anyone affiliated with a program that is no longer in CFB playoff contention, right? Just because you're not playing for a berth in the playoffs doesn't mean you're playing for nothing. And so, yes, I hear what you're saying about it galvanizing this team, but I also think there's probably not anything said or expressed to that effect in front of a microphone that hasn't already been said or expressed within the locker room. And so I think I would imagine that was the message maybe not from Drake Stoops individually, but I would imagine there were several guys that have been through the fire before. You're thinking of guys like not only Drake, but Woody Washington, for instance, Andrew Rain, guys that have been around this program for several years and been part of multiple teams that got that close and couldn't get over the hump. Marcus Stripling. And so the way I look at it's just, I see it as emblematic of what's being preached within the locker room right now from some of the more experienced guys that have to kind of realign the younger dudes in that locker room and not necessarily convince them, but remind them, hey, just because we're not going to the college football playoffs this year does not mean that there's not a lot of pride left to be had in what we do over the final 3, 4, 5 games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, what really stood out to me about the comment was, the initial question, he was kind of taken back a little bit, like, wait, what do you mean? And they're like, well, people. And he's like, who? And they're like, well, fans. And I mean, credit Drake Stoops that he didn't call out the fans like he probably wanted to. But when you say, well, the fans might think there's, nothing to play for, how he didn't hit the biggest eye roll of the century is a credit to his maturity, right? Behind, when he's got a bunch of microphones in his face and cameras on him, because I think it was more of a window into how crazy the fans can be sometimes. In that locker room, there's nobody walking around going, oh, I guess we just shouldn't practice anymore or play anymore, or I guess I'll sit out, or, whatever. We should probably make a quarterback change because this season is just, a throwaway season. Like the fact that he kind of reacted like the audacity of somebody to even suggest that this team had nothing to play for is dumb. So, like, I think that's what I took more. I mean, obviously the rest of the quote, I bust my tail 6 years in a row, like the rest of the quote's obviously really good. But I think it really showed the difference about how those athletes approach the season, approach their day-to-day work, approach each game. I think it shows the difference in how they approach it versus how fans do, where it's, well, we lost to Kansas of all teams, and we lost to Oklahoma State. Season's over, blah, blah, blah. We still can make the Big 12 championship, and it's not that crazy of a mathematical scenario where you can actually make it. So, I mean, I think that's what it is the quote of him saying, who's saying that? Oh, the fans? Like, of course they're going to say it because they don't know what the heck they're talking about anyways. Like, that's how I took it.
Okay. On the flip side, I want to ask you brought the fans up, and I was going to ask this anyways, but since you brought it up, I'm going to bring it up now. Does that quote galvanize the fan base on Saturday night to where the stadium is a lot more ruckus than it quite possibly might not have been after those 2 losses because of what Drake Stoops said? And how the fan base has kind of come around there now?
Yes, that I agree 1000% with. I think if this galvanizes anybody, it galvanizes OU football fans and kind of realigns them with reality, right? Mm-hmm. Because, and you talked about it, Travis, the fact that so many folks are right now are going, how on earth could Oklahoma lose to Kansas? How on earth could Oklahoma lose to Oklahoma State? I've seen so many people refer to those losses as unacceptable. And my thought on that is
top 15 teams.
Well, exactly. Like, if you had realistic expectations for this football team coming into the year, if you figured they were going to be 9-3, 10-2, thereabouts, as most of us did.
Yep.
But who would you rather have lost to? What losses would have been considered acceptable in your eyes? And you beat Texas. You won the one game every year that everybody feels like you gotta win. You have to win, if only for the sake of bragging rights. You gotta win that football game, and you darn near sell your soul in order to beat the Longhorns every single season. So you gotta win in that football game. The 2 teams that you lost to are national top 20 programs right now. I don't think there's any shame to be had in those losses because those are 2 excellent football teams that are nationally competitive right now. But I think in the aftermath, and the Jeff Lebby criticism is a whole nother conversation, but so many fans started treating this football team as if, well, they blew it. They got nothing left to compete for. Might as well just throw Jackson Arnold in there. Get ready for the SEC in 2024. Why does it even matter what they do the rest of the way? And Drake Stoops kind of dispelled all such notions with his comments on Monday evening. And I think that, if any, more than anything else, has the potential to bring this fan base together in a very ardent sense with regard to Oklahoma football than they otherwise might have heading into a 6:00 kick on a Saturday night versus West Virginia, in a game where both teams are really only playing to stay within striking distance of a berth in the Big 12 championship game. So yeah, I think this is great for the fans. I think that's who it matters to and for the most right now, is for the fans, because that was a legit concern I voiced in the postgame podcast, is that stadium as rowdy Saturday night as it otherwise would have been if Oklahoma still had a puncher's chance at a college football playoff berth? My instant reaction, my instant thought was, no,
Nope.
Probably not. Well, after hearing what Drake Stoops said Monday, I'm a little bit more optimistic.
Well, and I'll add this. I think the majority of Sooner fans that go to every game, I don't think they're either not going to the game or not going to be loud based on whether or not we have a shot at the college football playoff. Like, I think the majority of fans that show up, that aren't just on Twitter, like that aren't, on the message boards, which, I mean, yes, it's a good representation and a really good slice of, kind of the diversity of the entire fan base, and especially their opinions. But it's a night game. The weather's going to be nice. You got the alternates. You're going to have the LEDs going. Hopefully you play well. Like, I don't think if you play well this week, or when they introduce Danny Stutzman in the starting lineup, or they do any of that, I don't think you're going to be able to, listen and go, I think we've lost 2 games. Did we lose? We sound like we lost to Oklahoma State. You know what I mean? I think you get out there, you play well. I mean, people are getting wrapped up in we lost to Kansas, we lost to Oklahoma State. If you blind resume those teams, you're not fine with it, but you're not as devastated by it. Somebody told me yesterday, we've reached rock bottom as a program because we lost to Kansas and Oklahoma State. I'm like, I don't even know how to respond to that. They're like, well, we haven't lost to Kansas since 1997. I'm like, sorry, but this ain't your daddy's Jayhawk program, dude. This isn't even the Kansas team that beat Texas. Like, this is a ranked Big 12 contender in Kansas in a wonky game that came down to the last play. And then Oklahoma State has the nation's leading rusher that you actually handled pretty well on his biggest workload of his career. And they've got, an inside track to the big. So you've got 2 conference contenders, both on the road, both came down to the last play of the game, but the program has hit rock bottom, which it hasn't, but Oklahoma beat Oklahoma in those games. And that's what it came down to. I don't think there's a team on the schedule that has beaten Oklahoma yet. I think Oklahoma has beaten Oklahoma. And as long as they don't beat Oklahoma on Saturday, then I think we get out of there with a win.
And Mike Gundy himself said that. He said, if I were on that Oklahoma staff, I would be looking at that game and concluding that they beat themselves. And he said, I couldn't argue with that. So again, like, you don't want to fail to give it up to Oklahoma State and Kansas. They played well enough to win, but end of the day, OU kind of gave those games away in a variety of different facets. And so if you just clean that stuff up, and you don't even have to fix everything, right? You think about so many instances over the course of those 2 games where you make a play or you don't make an error and it completely changes the complexity of the football game and gives you a significantly better chance to win. You don't have to play a perfect football game. You can afford some pretty substantial mistakes, but you have to avoid the back-breaking ones. And Oklahoma just hasn't avoided the back-breaking ones the last couple of weeks. Again, like these issues are situational. They're not systemic. That's the phrase I've used all week. And situational issues are so much easier to fix than systemic ones.
They were systemic last year.
Yes, they were.
It was just idiotic. Yeah. I think the funny thing is like fans are like, well, the offense was inconsistent last year. They did this and that. No, the offense wasn't the problem last year. The offense did what they were supposed to do to win ball games. They kept you in ball games. The defense blew ball games last year.
Well, but to be fair, the West Virginia game is, I think, a lot of what people think about when they talk about the inconsistencies of the offense. And they remember the defense making play after play in that game, and the offense not being.
It was pouring rain. And
no, I get that, but I think I don't want to, as a fan representative, I don't want to throw the fans completely under the bus on saying, that the offense did have its times last year where you were like,
in a downpour in 30-degree weather. Parker was down there the whole game. He can tell you how.
It was not 30 degrees. I'll tell you that much.
Did West Virginia's offense have to play in that weather? Did West Virginia's offense have to play in that weather?
They did, and they struggled.
Won the game.
Thanks. They won the game on a last-second field goal because the defense gave up a big drive, and they couldn't stop them on fourth down. They gave up 4th and 3. How many times on that last drive? I mean, come on. Like let's call it what it is.
I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I get it, but like you can't. The offense was not the problem last year. They rode Eric Gray till he couldn't be rode anymore, and they did it consistently. This year, I think you can pinpoint that is the issue. Where last year Eric Gray would get going, and they would hand him the ball 25 times. Sawchuk got going. He had 115 yards on 11 carries. And they went, we're done middle of the third quarter. We're not going to give him the ball again. He didn't touch the ball again. Like,
he had 13 carries.
Okay, 13 carries.
So 13 carries. Tawi had 8. We honestly didn't hand the ball off to anybody against Oklahoma.
That's my point is
that's the weird part.
Like the dude averaged almost 9 yards a carry, and you're going, I'm good. You know what? He doesn't need to get the ball anymore. He's only getting a first down every time he touches the ball. And he literally did, outside of a couple of the ones where he got tackled the second he touched the ball. And that's where his minus yards came from out of those 13 carries that caused him to go backwards. He was getting chunk after chunk after chunk. There was I can think 5 carries, Parker, Travis, where the dude didn't get more than 4 yards.
And my biggest criticism offensively across the board, this isn't exclusive to the backfield, but I would like to see the Sooners stick with what works, or at least what is working in the moment, because on far too many occasions they've gotten away from that.
Well, and I brought this up yesterday on air, this is the first time in Jeff Levy's career that he can consistently go out and have the best players on the field. And he couldn't do that at UCF, couldn't do that at Baylor, couldn't do that at Southeastern, couldn't do that at Ole Miss. Like, the thing is, like,
I feel like he could. They were playing for the playoffs when he was there.
Well, but they didn't have the just sheer talent. You know what I mean? Like,
that's fair. That's fair.
So with that, I think a lot of times, like, there's talk about championship pedigree and stuff. Like, Brent Venables has coached defenses where he had the most talent, and he will coach to that standard. And even if he doesn't have all the talent that he needs yet, that's fine. I'm going to coach like I do. Well, Jeff Levy, I think at times, even if something's working, it's like he outthinks himself and says,
scheme everything.
They're going to figure out a way to stop that. So I need to preemptively punch before they punch back. I need to switch up what I'm doing. So if I run the ball successfully 3 times in a row, then I need to do something differently, because they're gonna crash the safeties, and I get that that's part of play calling, is understanding when to take your shots. But at the same time, it's like, if it's working, just continue to do it. The fact of the matter is, Nick Anderson's going to be better than the guy that he lines up across from. Like, Brandon Thompson's going to be faster than the guy he lines up across from. Like, Gavin Sawchuk, Tawi Walker, they're going to be able to, if it's blocked up well enough, going to be able to pick up yardage against the defenses they're going up against. Like, it's Dylan Gabriel. It's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the country. Like, he's going to be able to put the ball where it needs to be put. So, like, just trusting your personnel and not having to sit back and say, man, they're about to figure me out. I gotta prove that, man, I'm always 1 step, 2 steps ahead of the game. Here we go. Like, bro, just line it up and go beat them. Like, that's all we just line them up and go beat them, because that you can do that when you're at Oklahoma.
I have a beef with one thing, like two things. The one is everybody wants to blame Levy for everything. Situationally, we've talked about it. All three of us think just awful situational awareness, calls, clock management, control, all that type of stuff. Like, it's been bad. Like, we can all agree at that. We agree with the fan base on that 100%. But you can't blame Levy for Nick Anderson dropping a wide open touchdown pass. Not once, but twice. He had another one across the middle where he just flat dropped going across the middle, and he could have still been running. Like, two of those, Nick Anderson had a rough day. He had a rough day. Farouk dropped 2 passes that should have been big chunk plays, right? He made up for it later on the drive that Drake Stoops eventually had that non-PI call on that bomb. But outside of that, he struggled a little bit, right? Like, Farouk didn't have the best day. And so you look at that and you're like, yeah, should he have ran the ball more? Yes, they should have ran the ball more. Should they have given the ball to Sawchuk and Tawi Walker more? Yes. Should Smothers have been in there? No. Like, we can go on and on about that crap. But the fact that it came down to what it came down to last week, not all of it's on Levy. Like, the players have to go make plays. Dylan Gabriel has to hit Stogner over the middle when he's wide ass open 4 freaking times. Like, Travis, we sat by each other. We're both sitting there going, oh my God. Like, that dude he's walking into the end zone, 2-3 times just on seam routes. Nobody's within 30 yards of him. And he's not going to look at him. It had nothing, like, the second the ball was high, Stogner's running wide open. And it's almost like the defense is saying, you're not going to throw in the ball. So why are we going to cover him? We are not going to cover Austin Stogner because you're not going to throw him the ball. And he's proven in his career that he can do it. That's the worst part about this whole deal. It's almost as if Levy should tag it. And what I mean by tag is people don't understand that. You tag, so like when you have all these routes out there, you tag it. Your first read is a tag. That's your first read. Your second read is tag 2, tag 3. So that's what I mean. They should tag it and say, Dylan, you have to look at him. Like, I get it. You don't like throwing across the middle because you can't see it. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. If he's wide open, you're not going to throw a pick as long as you get it within the 6'6", 250-pound range of Austin Stogner. He's going to catch the ball.
Right. And at that point, you don't need to worry about leading the receiver, throwing him.
No, he's catch radius.
Just hit him. Just try and hit him with the football. He can stand there.
Yes. Like, and it's wild. Like, if you want to have your perimeter game more wide open, you have to use him. You have to use him. If you want the run game to work more, you have to use him. Like, those things are non-negotiable in football. The tight end has to be used if you want to have an excellent run game that is going to work over and over and over. Look at last year's team, Braden Willis. Look at all the teams prior to Venables showing up. What did they use? They used Austin Stogner and every other tight end known to man, and the run game was awesome. And the perimeter game, the deep balls were wide open because you had to account for him or the tight end in general. And that to me is the biggest issue of the offense, is they've gotten away from what worked last year to try to get all these different playmakers the ball. Well, guess what? If they may each get a couple of less catches or 1 or 2 less catches a game, but the offense is going to be more efficient. And that's really all that matters, right? At the end of the day. Like,
well, and not only that, it's, if I want to get a playmaker of the football, right, on this drive once or twice, right? Well, if I have 5 plays on this drive, I have less opportunities to get him the ball. If I do things to extend the drives, i.e. running the ball, putting yourself in good, down and distance, Like if you have a 12 play drive, you have a lot better chance of getting the ball in that playmaker's hands than if you than if that's what you prioritize. The priority should be to continue to do what works and grind out chunk plays, grind out yardage, put yourself in good situations, pick up first downs, and then you can get the ball into your playmaker's hands and take shots when you want, but give yourself more opportunities by extending drives consistently.
This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast is brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. So instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. This weekend, my entry involves former Oklahoma Sooners tight end Mark Andrews, now with the Baltimore Ravens. I like his matchup against the Cleveland Browns. He's had an excellent season thus far, and I like him to end up with more than his projected receiving yards total. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, which is a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you can get LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Go to prizepicks.com/insider and use code INSIDER for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/insider and use code INSIDER for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast is brought to you in part by BetterHelp. Folks, as the holiday season draws near, it's only natural that memories, thoughts, feelings, emotions start to swirl in your head and in your psyche. This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or anxiety about it. But therapy can be a bright spot amidst all the stress and change, something to look forward to help you feel grounded and to give you the tools to manage everything going on in your own head. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, all you have to do is just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed BetterHelp therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. You can find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/OU Insider today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/OU Insider to take 10% off your first month of therapy.
Let's talk about West Virginia, guys. I'll let you two talk a little bit here on just what does Oklahoma have to do to win this ball game on Saturday?
I feel like I say it every week, and feel like every week the Sooners continually fail to do it. Start fast, man. Start fast. Jump out to a lead. Take the initiative. Make the other team play catch up. We talked all week last week about how that's all you had to do against Oklahoma State. Put them in a hole by a possession or two. Make them play from behind. Make them get away from Ollie Gordon because they had to throw to stay in the game. The Sooners didn't do that, and look what happened. Oklahoma State had one recipe for victory, and the Sooners let them execute it. And so against West Virginia, man, it's going to be the same deal. You think about these last 2 games that have been played between these teams. They've both been ugly. Oklahoma won 16-13 in 2021 on a walk-off Gabe Burkich field goal in Norman. And then obviously West Virginia turned the tables, returned the favor. They won on a walk-off field goal up in Morgantown, 23-20 last season. So these have been knockdown, drag-out type games over the last couple of years because that's what you have to do if you're a program like West Virginia in order to hang with Oklahoma. You got to muck it up. You got to slow it down. And that's going to be, I believe that's going to be what the Mountaineers try to do, especially away from their home turf this time, coming to Oklahoma's place. And so I think it's paramount that the Sooners start fast, get in a rhythm offensively, jump out to a first quarter lead, take the initiative from the other team. And again, you make them catch up to you. That's a recipe for success.
Yeah, I've got two things really that I think if they do these two things, they win, probably going away. First is the don't beat yourself mantra, right? Just don't do stupid things. And I know that sounds silly, but all three turnovers against Oklahoma State were stupid. Like the Javante Barnes, Dylan Gabriel lining up in the wrong place because that is not the play they were supposed to run. You'll never convince me that Javante Barnes was supposed to get that snap and then immediately hand it to Dylan Gabriel. So misalignment there. Another snap hits Dylan Gabriel low, and that's a fumble. Again, another unforced error. And then Dylan Gabriel throws deep into double coverage, just a stupid call while he's got wide open receivers elsewhere. So all three turnovers, just shooting yourselves in the foot. How Oklahoma also shoots themselves in the foot, they are, look, and I know there's Big 12 officiating conspiracies. I might subscribe to that conspiracy, but Oklahoma is ranked 108th in the entire country in penalties per game. That is atrocious. And that is receivers. I mean, false starts on receivers that are veterans. Jaleel Farouk, Drake Stoops are false starting. I mean, that makes zero sense. This isn't just competitive, pass defenses that are getting called. This isn't, the ticky-tack holding calls. This is two different sideline penalties that went for 15 yards. This is just bad holding penalties, bad false starts, bad, just a lot of unforced errors. 108th in penalties, and that comes down to discipline and shooting yourselves in the foot. So that's one. Don't shoot yourselves in the foot. Don't do stupid things. The other one might be a little more difficult, and it is third down defense, third down offense, more so than any time this entire year is important. You've got to extend drives, and you've got to get your defense off the field, because West Virginia, in their 6 conference games this year, they have not lost the time of possession battle. And the closest it's been is that they've had the ball for 5 minutes and 12 seconds longer than their opponent. That was the closest game. If you take their 6 conference games, just cumulatively, they've had the ball for over 58 minutes more of game time in those 6 games. That's nearly an hour of your defense being on the field, getting gassed, their offense continuing scoring, opportunities, your offense, your high-powered offense sitting on the sideline, and their defense getting a rest. I mean, their defenders have played significantly less snaps in conference play than Oklahoma's defenders have. And that stuff adds up. That stuff adds up whenever you're coming back from injury, whenever you got guys like Gentry and Peyton and Danny and all these guys that are trying to get back. If you keep on stacking those snaps up on them, just like last year, your depth gets exposed. So with that, I don't have any reason to believe that we're going to win the time of possession battle, because they're 6-0 in the time of possession battle, and we just had one of our worst of the year against Oklahoma State. But keep it closer, like keep it within 3 or 4 minutes, like and you do that by winning on 3rd and 4th down. So those are the two things: 3rd and 4th down, which affect drastically the time of possession, and then don't make mistakes.
For me, I think it's you have to obviously play sound defense, and what I mean by that is you can't let Garrett Green start running around and using his legs and doing all that type of stuff that killed you last year versus West Virginia in critical moments. You can't beat yourself on defense by not playing with gap integrity, with fundamentals, tackling in space, those type of things that killed Oklahoma the very first drive of the game against Oklahoma State. And I know Key Lawrence would like to forget that drive ever existed, but it's gonna. I'm here to tell you all that I'm willing to make a ventured bet, and we saw it throughout the rest of Bedlam. I bet you Robert Spears Jennings gets the chunk of the field safety position snaps this week. I'll bet money on it, actually. And I say that because, one, he played really well. Two, it feels like ever since Texas, Key has regressed more and more and more each week. He's boom or bust each week. You don't know which Key Lawrence you're going to get. I think we all can agree on that. He has not played well for 3 straight weeks. And it's cost Oklahoma. His lack of being able to tackle in space. How many times on a short yardage situation where he comes up and just completely whiffs on a tackle in the last 3 weeks? How many times? At least 9, 10 times at least.
More,
no, that's
more,
that
more than what
than
is
he's
acceptable.
made. Yeah. Oh, 100%. So you got to get guys out there that are going to tackle in space, that are going to play well, that are going to play hard, that have a passion for the game. And I'm not saying he doesn't. It just looks like he doesn't the way he's acting right now on the field. Like it just looks like he does not care right now. And that's my opinion. It is what it is. 2, you've got to be more consistent in how you attack West Virginia. If something is working, keep doing it. You don't have to out scheme them. You don't have to out personnel them. You already are out personnelling. You're freaking Oklahoma. I almost said the other word. So, like, you're Oklahoma. You're going to out personnel everybody in this league except for Texas. That's it. And there's going to be times you're going to out personnel Texas. It's just a matter of the situation. And they did so well the first 6 ball games of the season. Situational football, personnel football. Outside of the running back situation, that was all jacked up the first 6 weeks. Now it seems like you know what you know. You've got Gavin Sawchuk, you got Tobby Walker. Give those 2 guys at least 15 carries apiece, and then let the rest let everything else fall in place. Passing, Dylan Gabriel, all that type of stuff. And I guarantee you'll win the ball game and the offense will be a lot more consistent. Guaranteed. You want to know how I know that works? We saw it last year. Eric Gray, boom, over the top. Eric Gray, boom, hitting Braden Willis down the seam. Like, we saw it. We know it works. So why get away from that? There was no point in getting away from that recipe. They got to get back to that. It's got to get back to consistent football. And again, like you guys said, you cannot turn the ball over, and you cannot do stupid penalties in stupid situations. I get it. The players are going to make mistakes. That's a fact. What can't happen is the head coach making a mistake. That can't happen. I know he didn't say anything. I know he didn't do anything, but the dude was out past the numbers. And did they call it on Mike Gundy? No. I get that too. But if you know going into the game that you've already got 2 hands tied behind your back with the officials, why? Why even test it? Why? You know it's not going to go in your favor. So don't test it. Don't test it. Play within yourself on the sidelines and on the field, and you will win this ball game. And because I think the crowd is going to make a difference. I do. I think the crowd will make a difference this weekend. It's just a matter of convincing the fans that you need to be there. Like, listen to us now. You need to be there because the recruiting weekend they're trying to have this weekend could be absolutely epic. And you showing up matters. You being loud matters. If you want this team to move forward in the future to the SEC, tonight's a good start to make sure that your 24 and 25 classes continue to move in the right direction. Parker, you want to add to that part?
I was about to say, I wondered when we were going to get around to talking recruiting, and obviously that time is now. And I think that is the one thing more than anything else that has the opportunity to move the needle with the Sooners' top uncommitted 2024 target, which is Grant Brix at this point. I mean, the whole Eddie Pierre-Louis thing is just so bizarre, and I don't even know. There's probably a better word to describe that situation, not one that comes to mind for me. It's a weird deal with Eddie Pierre-Louis, and has been for several weeks now. But with Bricks, he's been to Nebraska. He says he intends to take a trip to Kansas State on November 25th, but November 11th is the Sooners' last chance to make an impression on him. And if you think about Oklahoma versus Nebraska, right? What is the one thing right now that you can't take away from Nebraska? The one thing that they have had forever that's part and parcel of their football identity. It's the sellout streak. And it is the reality that those fans, and I will give them credit, they pack out Memorial Stadium up in Lincoln every single Saturday, rain or shine, win or lose, no matter how much that program sucks or has sucked over the years, those fans show up. And so the atmosphere at Memorial Stadium, the promise of being a local legend if you wear the scarlet and cream, well, that is naturally something that Nebraska is going to try to leverage in their pursuit of Bricks. And so for Oklahoma, you're going to have to be able to show the kid, hey, it just means more in the SEC, right? You come down here to an SEC venue, you're going to get 85,000 raucous fans every single week, and you're not going to find a game day environment like you are at Oklahoma. And for me, the last time I went up to visit Bricks, he said something that I found really, really poignant. And he said, look, I thought I could make this decision without doing game day visits. I was wrong. I wish I'd done these visits earlier in the season. But I asked him, hey, man, like when you take these visits, are you planning to do all three and then make a decision? Or like, what are you going to have to see that enables you, compels you to pull the trigger? And he said, man, at this point, it's really just about kind of having that moment where I realize, man, I'm ready to go hit somebody in the mouth for this team. Like, I'm all about this program. I want to be part of this. And so look, the fact that he took that Nebraska visit and left Lincoln, and nearly 2 weeks have elapsed now, it would stand to reason that he didn't have that type of epiphany at Nebraska. And so if you can make sure that he experiences that type of epiphany at Oklahoma, well, it's as simple as that. Like, you got the kid on board. So what does it take for that to happen? Well, I think you have to play well. I think you have to showcase your culture. And I think Saturday night really has to highlight the ardor and the fervor of the Oklahoma fan base. And there are plenty of other recruits that are going to be in town, both in the 2024 class and in the 2025 class. But especially with your chances with Eddie Pierre-Louis starting to fade, this recruitment has taken on a new degree of significance in recent days. And this is one that you have to have, because I've never understood why Bill Bedenbaugh dissenters seem to abound with regard to his recruiting acumen. But they're going to be people that make a lot of noise if he misses on both Eddie Pierre-Louis and Grant Bricks. So really feels like, if only for the sake of the sanity of the recruitniks across the Oklahoma fan base, Bedenbaugh's got to nail down one of these guys. I think he's got a real good chance to do so with Bricks. And again, everything matters. But if that game day environment is impressive, and it speaks to the kid in a very real, very loud way this weekend, you might be able to wrap this thing up for good and never have to sweat out his final visit to Manhattan.
Yeah, there's so many things that you could center this weekend around, but I think it is Grant Bricks. Like you said, it's a very, very important recruitment. And I'm sure there's going to be other people that show up that we haven't talked about yet. Like we plan on having a list up in the next 24 hours on OU Insider. So we should have more names for you guys. And I know there's a name out there that everybody's like, is he going to show up? Is he going to show up? I just can't imagine that. Okay, you just sent me the major visitors list. Okay. I was like, Parker just texting in the middle. I thought it was like, I got to get off this podcast. Yeah. Yeah, there's probably going to be some other names out there that, you know, if they are to show up, we're not going to know about them until they get on campus. I just think that's a fact. And y'all know who we're talking about and all that. And it's a matter, we've always felt it's a matter of when, not if he shows up, but we're just not going to know. We're not even going to say the name.
Well, that's the thing. Like it's less about not knowing and more about not saying, because the second you say it.
Yeah. And we don't know, like, we don't know if that said person's going to show up or not. Like, we don't. But there's also, I mean, I will say this, Terry Bussey's a name that could end up showing up, like, just because you heard rumors last home game that he might be there, and then it just kind of fell through. So, like, there are players that Oklahoma are trying to flip from other schools, and the way Oklahoma's operated in the last 18 months since Venables has got there is you're not going to know until they arrive. That's just how they've operated on big names like that. So I would just venture to sit back and wait. And if they don't show up, then they don't show up. Then you kind of know your chances of getting and flipping those guys are dwindling, because you've only got one more shot before, the season's over with. We have TCU. You got TCU at home, the final home game. Outside of that, it's kind of, and that's an 11 a.m. kickoff, by the way. So your odds are pretty slim of getting some of these dudes up here at that point. It is what it is, guys. I mean, you've got to be able to get those type of guys on campus, and the list that we have right now, I got a couple others, but Parker has a pretty decent list, and we're going to have it. I'll put it up on the board later on today. So if you're not an OU Insider member, I'd get on over there, because it's a pretty decent list of big names coming in this weekend for Oklahoma in the 24 and 25 class. So it should be pretty fun. And it was to be expected with this being the last night game, by the way. This whole time, I think with the Unity uniforms, guys, I think there's a lot of things that Oklahoma pinpointed this weekend as they're going to go all in, because it's a month away from National Signing Day, essentially. The original National Signing Day, give or take,
6 weeks.
Yep. So this is the perfect time to make your last push. If you're going to do it, this is the time to do it. All right. Before we close this out real quickly, we got about another 10 minutes to go on this podcast. Let's get we'll do the West Virginia game last, but let's get our predictions in on college football this week. Fans seem to like how we have done this the last few weeks. So let's start going. There is a big game this weekend. I think we all kind of, do we want to start with the biggest game or no? Do we, outside of the OU West Virginia game, do we want to start with the biggest game of the week, or do we want to?
Yeah, let's just start with the biggest one.
Okay. All right. Michigan, Penn State. Supposedly, this is Thursday, November 9th. Supposedly today, there's supposed to be potentially stuff coming out on a decision on is that correct?
I don't even know at this point, man. That's
going to get dragged on. It doesn't matter. It's going to get dragged on.
It's going to be appealed and all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Right. It's going to be hung up in courts. So.
All right. All right. But anyways, Michigan's traveling to Penn State. Does the Nittany Lion, or do they have a chance to upset the boys in blue? Anybody? Bueller?
I mean, also, okay, so James Franklin beats all the teams that he's favored against, and he doesn't beat any of the teams that he's not favored against.
That's facts.
So it's so true.
So it's the simplest. I mean, I know that's about as basic surface level analysis, but Michigan's favored by 4.5 right now. I think Michigan wins probably by a field goal, something like that. Things like this, when a bunch of people are calling you cheaters and trying to say that your wins are fraudulent and this, that, and the other, like, I don't know, is that galvanizing, the team, the locker room, anything Michigan? We're going to go out and show them that beyond a shadow of a doubt, play call or no play call, we're just better than these teams. I mean, maybe. So, but again, James Franklin beats the teams he's supposed to beat and doesn't beat any of them that he's not supposed to beat. So, Michigan.
Parker?
I think Penn State is due. I think they get this one done, and it just feels like, I don't know. It would fit with the story, if you will. It would fit with the narrative if Michigan's first big game after the whole sign stealing scandal results in a loss, because I'm just envisioning like what the Twitter discourse will be if they lose this game. And A, it'll be hilarious, but B, everybody will go, okay, well, like it makes sense now. It makes a lot of sense why Michigan was falling flat on their faces in 2020 when nobody was in the stands for football games, but then suddenly they were a force in 21 and 22, just like that. So I think especially at home, Penn State is going to have what it takes to get this done. They played Ohio State real tough. That was a good football game. I think they can get over the hump this weekend and knock off Michigan. I think the home field advantage is what tips the scales for me. I like the Nittany Lions.
I'm actually going to go with Parker on this. I think Penn State wins. I know I'm crazy. We're crazy. Two wild and crazy guys. I just did the SNL dance there. What was that? Steve Martin and who was that that did that with him? Anyways, doesn't matter. I'm digressing. I'm going to go with Penn State just because I feel like the crowd, everything that's hovering around, and I get that there is that chance that, as y'all said, that they could be galvanized, speaking of Michigan, because of everything against them, and it brings the team together and all that type of stuff. But Harbaugh has notoriously choked a game away over the years. I just can't, whether it's in the playoffs, whether it's in the season, like he's choked it away, and he's choked it away in a big way. And so I feel like this is the time, this is the place. Penn State's at home. Happy Valley's going to be rocking. And I got Penn State. I'll even do one better and give you the score. I'll go 24-21, Penn State.
Okay.
How about them apples?
Okay.
There we go.
So, gosh, that would really throw a wrench in the.
And I know who you meant, by the way, Parker.
Yeah, that would really throw a wrench in the Big Ten championship race, would it not?
It would make things very dicey, doesn't it? So, Mississippi at Georgia. This one is interesting to me. I'm trying to see what the line is. I'm trying to find it here on my.
Georgia's favored by 10.5.
They're favored by 10.5. All right. So I'm gonna go Georgia because it looks like it's in Athens. But I'm gonna say Mississippi covers the 10.5. I think they hold it within at least 10 points.
I can't pick against Georgia, man.
Yeah.
They just win and win and win and win. I will take them to win and to cover.
Okay.
Especially on their home field. Yeah, I like them over the Rebs.
Yeah, it seems like Lane Kiffin wins a lot of games. He tweets a lot. He tweeted about the Drake Stoops video. But he has a tough time, like everybody does, beating the top dogs, no pun intended. And yeah, I think Georgia, they're hitting their stride, and I think it is foolish to pick against Georgia. They've given me no reason to believe. What have they won? 26 straight? Yeah, no reason to believe that they're going to start losing now.
What about USC at Oregon? This one's interesting because obviously Alex Grinch is gone. I don't think that makes the defense any better. I'm assuming Brian Odom is the interim DC, would be my guess. And And
I think they've got like co-interim DCs, and he's one of them, I think.
It's Sean Nua and Brian Odom.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Odom's a good. We already saw he's a good play caller. We saw it in the Alamo Bowl.
If Ted Roof wants to ride it off into the sunset after the 2023 season, I am all in favor of bringing Brian Odom home.
Same. I just don't know that that's going to happen. Here's the rub is I think Odom is a good play caller on defense. I think he's going to have the guys ready. I think he's going to be a little bit different, and he was different. And now he's a lot more aggressive than Grinch was. He was a lot more scheme oriented than Grinch was as far as how he ran the defense. And we got to see that there were some pretty elaborate blitzes, very, ritzy type blitzes that he threw against Oregon in that Alamo Bowl, and it worked. And Oklahoma was running different coverages. They weren't being really base in anything that they did. And I thought that was something that Grinch could never get himself to get away from, because he wanted everybody to play fast. He never wanted to really scheme against somebody and really put them on the heels, because he didn't want his guys to think. He just wanted them to go out and play. And I think that hurt them more than helped them. And we saw that with how the Oklahoma players were saying they didn't even know defense because Grinch never taught them defense. As far as like different coverages and all that type of stuff, they had no idea what Venables was talking about when they arrived. That said, there's only been a week for Odom to get it done. I think the defense is better. I think they hold Oregon down a bit. I think Caleb goes in and throws really well, has a good game. At the end of the day, I think Oregon's more talented. I think they're better on defense, and I think they make the plays needed to win. I've got Oregon by 3. And would that make it 4 in a row losses for USC at this point? It would, wouldn't it?
Yep.
No, they beat Cal.
They would have lost 4 of their last 5.
They would have
lost 4 of their last 5. Correct. Wow. Riley is then on the hot seat at that point. You don't think?
I don't think on the hot seat. I don't think USC.
They go 7-5 with the best player that college football's seen in the last decade, and he's not on the hot seat.
No, he's not. They're paying him a king's ransom to be there. So you think that Jimbo buyout's special? That Lincoln Riley buyout's going to be special. We don't know it because it's a private school, this, that, and the other. But
no, I get that. But
same time, they're going to pay him, and like he's in year 2. Like he's got players committed, number 1 quarterbacks. They've actually got defenders. One defender committed 30 minutes after Grinch was fired. Like that was a stipulation, of his commitment.
Fire Alex Grinch, then I will commit.
That's where I think us, being in Oklahoma are like, oh, well, Lincoln Riley screwed going to the Big Ten with that crazy schedule they got next year with no Caleb Williams. I think a lot of us can see that, Lincoln's going to struggle there. But as far as on the hot seat in year 2, with now his fall guy gone, because he can say, well, it was the defense, right, guys? Plashke, you were writing about Grinch, right? All these guys were writing about Grinch. Okay, I got rid of Grinch. He's exonerated from all responsibility now that Grinch is fired. So I don't think Lincoln Riley is on the hot seat regardless. But as far as prediction goes, I also have Oregon by 3. The only difference is I have Oregon by 3 scores. So
wow.
I think that while Odom is a fine play caller, no doubt, I like Odom a lot. He doesn't have any plays that make them bigger and stronger and better tacklers. Like that's not a play on his play sheet. So not only that, but I think that Dan Lanning is looking at this as an opportunity where USC is on the ropes as far as West Coast recruiting goes. Oregon is already doing a fantastic job in the state of California on the trail. And I think he sees this, especially after Lincoln made the comments about recruiting locally, that kind of caught a lot of people off guard. A lot of Californians, didn't like that. And then now he's got obviously the big win over Colorado early, which the hype train was all in Colorado, and then it ran into Oregon, and Dan Lanning ran that score up and said, yeah, we're really about that life. And I think he sees the opportunity to, as he moves into the Big Ten, understand that this is the time that I can basically step on the throat and snuff out my biggest West Coast recruiting rival in USC. And I think, Dan, I think they run up. I think they win by 3 scores.
Parker?
This game is going to be a blowout. I don't see any way it's not. Alex Grinch or no Alex Grinch, man, Oregon is a very good football team right now.
Mm-hmm.
USC is a very one-dimensional football team. And I'm sorry, but like you get the doors blown off by Notre Dame. Notre Dame is not that great. They're not bad, but I think the last couple of weeks have illustrated they are not great. You get the doors blown off by Notre Dame, man. You get beat by a walk-on quarterback in Utah. Washington did not come in to that game last weekend playing their best football either. I think our former colleague Josh Pate said it best. Everybody has had their get right game against USC, and Oregon doesn't need to get right now. This is going to be a blowout of epic proportions. I mean, it feels like Oregon might be able to score 100 points if they wanted to Saturday. So I expect 3-4 possessions at minimum to separate the Ducks and the Trojans.
Wow. Okay, real quickly, let's just pick the teams and move on. Utah at Washington, big game, 2:30 kick. 13 Utah at number 5 Washington. I'll take Washington.
Yeah, I got Washington too.
I'll take Washington close. I think Utah covers the 9.5.
Tennessee at Missouri, 2:30 kick. Number 14 Tennessee at number 16 Missouri. I'll take Tennessee.
Yeah, I got the balls.
I think Missouri is kind of back to reality a little bit.
I think Missouri, I think had the ball around the field down to Georgia late. I think fourth quarter they had, ball at midfield with a chance to go ahead. I mean, Missouri is having a much better season than anybody would have predicted. And losing decently close to Missouri or to Georgia doesn't change that for me. But I do think Tennessee wins by a field goal in this one. Theo Weiss is quietly having one of the better years in the country, especially among transfers. A lot of contested catches. I think he leads the country in contested catches at 13 last time I checked. That's a guy that got to change the scenery, and it's paid off for him. So good for Theo. I do think Missouri comes up short in this one.
Texas at TCU. I'm going to pick Texas, but yeah.
It's in Fort Worth, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't do it. I'm taking Texas. I can't do it.
Is he going to do it?
No, I'm taking Texas.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll take the flyer on TCU since nobody else is going to do it.
There you go, Travis.
Malik Murphy, if he plays like he did in the second half, Texas is going to lose this football game.
I agree with that, but
so if you're Texas and he plays the first half like he played the second half against Kansas State, and you're on the road and you're stressed out, what do? Do you go to Arch? Like, do you just hand the ball off a ton and try and get out of there with a close win? Like, I think, does Quinn come? Quinn posted that to Instagram that he'd be unleashed soon. Like, are they going to try and rush him back? Like, I think when you have as many questions and concerns at the quarterback position as Texas has after that second half, Kansas State should have beat them multiple times, including in regulation. So I don't know. I think TCU has a chance to shock the world. All we need as a reminder to people, Kansas lose one game, Texas lose one game, OU win out, and OU is in the Big 12 championship. Just as a reminder.
Speaking of, just real quick, we got to do these real quick. Oklahoma State at UCF. I'm gonna go UCF. I think they pull it off.
I do not. I do not. Pokes.
See, I knew you guys were gonna pick the Pokes, and I'm doing it for the OU fans here. So if I'm right, you can thank me. And that was just a flyer. As Travis picked a flyer earlier, I picked a flyer myself. Miami at Florida State. Is this where Florida State slips up? I'm gonna pick
if
FSU.
if
But
it weren't
I'm not
Miami,
confident.
if it weren't Miami and it weren't in Tallahassee, then maybe I could have confidence picking the upset. But no, I got to roll with the Noles, man. I don't trust Miami. I can't trust Miami.
Right. I'm in the same boat. Miami has been fraudulent since they joined the ACC. I mean, they've had one double-digit win season since they joined the ACC like 20 years ago. Like Miami, they're just simply not good enough to beat this Florida State team, in my opinion. I think Florida State wins by 2 scores.
All right. This week's game in Norman, number 17, Oklahoma hosting West Virginia. 6 p.m. kickoff. Is it on ABC or Fox Sports 1? Which one is it?
I have no idea.
I don't pay attention to TV stuff. So
right.
All right. Doesn't matter. Both are. Well, I'll tell you where it's at. It is on
Fox.
Fox. Yep. All right. Night game, Norman, Oklahoma. I'm gonna go Oklahoma 38. West Virginia 17. I'm actually feeling pretty confident in the Sooners this weekend. I think they come out firing all cylinders. I think the night game, I think they just, for some odd reason, Norman at night is very, very, they're just difficult. OU is difficult in night games in Norman. And because of that, I'm going to pick them to be able to not only cover, but I think they're going to play really well. And I think the nation's going to go, okay, whoa. Was it because Stutzman was out? Was it because they were injured? Tawi Walker, all that? Is that why they lost to Oklahoma State? Is that why they lost to Kansas? Now that both of those guys are healthy and back, Gentry Williams could be healthy again. Bowen healthy. Like a lot of guys are going to be coming back healthy this week. The unfortunate part is they weren't healthy last week or the week before when they needed them. But back at home, does Oklahoma wake up the nation? I don't know about that, but I think that they're going to play really well, and I think they're going to look like what they look like the first 6 weeks of the season on Saturday.
I got the Sooners 31-13, featuring a field goal from a fourth-string running back, a la the Houston Texans. Dalen Smothers puts one through the uprights to put the exclamation point on an Oklahoma victory.
He's being sarcastic, but there you go. For those that don't know sarcasm. Go ahead, Travis.
Okay, so I think it's interesting. You guys both have them scoring in the teens. The last 4 games, they're averaging 38 points a game, over 500 yards of offense over these last 4 conference games. They're doing so with a balanced attack. They're averaging over 250 in both on the ground and through the air in those 4, which is kind of astonishing, to be honest. The only difference is they are 0-2 on the season in conference play when playing a team in the top 60 in tackles for loss. Oklahoma ranks number 6 in the country in this category. I think that Oklahoma gets them in a lot of third and longs and kind of cuts into that desire to stay balanced. And I do think Oklahoma wins behind some tackles for loss and a really good third down defensive performance. I think that this score ends up being 35-24.
There you go. 35-24 from Travis, 38-17 from me, and 31-13 from Parker, all having Oklahoma win. What was yours again, Travis? I'm sorry.
Win by 11. It's not a cover.
Yep. Travis is the guy you want to throw tomatoes at, Sooners fans. There you go. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners pregame podcast. If you're not on OU Insider, go there now. We're about to have a great visitor list for you guys, all the big names that will be there this weekend in Norman for that 6 p.m. kickoff. It's a big recruiting weekend. Parker, myself, we're going to have you guys covered head to toe. Don't miss out on the tailgates. You got to be at the OU Insider tailgate this weekend. It's going to start at 11 a.m., and that baby's going to roll all the way to about 5:30. So if you'll see it, the big OU Insider tent on Lindsay Street. We will all be there. Depending on how my kid does tonight, I will be late if they win because he will be playing in the championship game on Saturday afternoon. But if they lose, I will be there throughout the entirety of the tailgate. Otherwise, Brian, Parker, Jesse, I don't know about Travis. He may or may not show up, but the rest of the gang will be there 100% guaranteed. Go hang out, go talk to them, go meet them, go eat some food, go watch some football, go be OU insiders. Hang with us. We'll get you right. All right. Join OU Insider. $99.99 for the whole year, $9.99 for the month. That'll get you all the way to National Signing Day, potentially. And you can get all sorts of stuff. We're giving away tickets. We're doing a drawing for the West Virginia game. Multiple members are going to win a pair of tickets to the game on us. So, make sure you're on OU Insider. That drawing is later on this evening on Thursday, November 9th at 7 p.m. So you need to hurry and enter now. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you give us 5 stars on all the podcast platforms. For Travis Davidson, for Parker Thune, my name's Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed day.